Hi everyone, welcome to Chalet's Mother's Day online exclusive flower arranging workshop. So today, let's start. My name is Paige and I am a designer here at Chalet's Signature, and I have a background in garden design and floral design. And today we are going to make this wonderful Mother's Day arrangement that you can make with your kids if you choose. And it is an online exclusive. We won't be selling this in the store, and so if you buy this kit, you get this video, you get to make this arrangement with your kiddos. And the purpose of this is just to have a fun activity that you can do for Mother's Day, and kids of any ages can help out, or maybe you're an adult and you want to go do it with your mom. You know, it's a lot of fun, and it's also something that many of the components of this can be planted in your garden after the fact. And they can come back year after year, so you can be like, oh, you remember that in 2021 when we made that flower arrangement together? Look at all those plants coming up. So, all right. And we also want to thank you guys for being Chalet customers. It's been an interesting year and a half, and we really appreciate all of you for continuing to, support us and be our customers, and supporting the smaller local businesses. All right. Because this is a demo and it's not live, we are not going to have a Q&A at the end. However, if you have any questions that I don't answer during this demo, you can email us at hello@chaletnursery.com. Okay? All right, so let's get started. Again, so this is the arrangement we're going to make today. It's a beautiful spring, bright arrangement. Okay, and we're going to talk about it in full detail in a bit. The kits you've received are going to come in a tray like this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what's in this box. Okay, let's get started with that. The very first thing is you have a bag of Chalet potting mix. This is formulated for indoor plants and in our region. Okay, so let's put that to the side. Second, we have a 6.75 inch glazed ceramic blue container. Now these are perfect for indoor arrangements because they have no drainage hole, okay? No drainage hole. And that's okay. You just have to adjust your watering. You don't have to water it as much, but it saves your furniture, saves your counters. So we like to use these that have no drainage hole for indoor. Okay. Next, in your other little baggie, you have some green forest moss, and this is what's going to make it look great and finished at the end. Okay. And you also have a little small bundle of pussy willow, which is really popular in the spring. You see it all over the place. Okay. All right, and then we have 4 different plants here. Okay. So the first is that we have a violet or blue hyacinth, and I gave you 2, so you have 2 little bulbs. There's 1 bulb per container. Okay. Next, you have a mini yellow daffodil. Okay. Next, we have a double Kalanchoe. Some people say Kalanchoe or Kalanchoe. This one is the flower's a little fancier. It's a double ruffled flower, and it's in a nice hot pink. And the last plant is a variegated English ivy. This is a kind of a little bit of like a yellow and green variety. Okay. Now I like to take everything out of my box or tray because I like to work in this. It kind of, cuts down on the mess a little bit. Kind of keeps it contained. Okay. And throughout this demonstration, I'll explain these plants in more detail to you. Okay, as we go along. All right, so we've removed everything from our tray, and we're going to take our pot. We're going to place it. I'm going to place mine in the box, and then we're going to get our potting soil, and we're going to fill it up. Well, you probably have a little extra because we certainly don't want you to not have enough. And I like to fill it up to about an inch and a half from the top. Okay. And don't pack it in there yet, but just sort of pour it in there. Okay. So it's kind of like this. Can you see that? All right. So that's what we're going to start with. Okay. Now, I'd like to start with our bulbs, which are the hyacinth and the daffodil, to do this planting. And we're going to start, number one, with the hyacinth. Okay? Now, like I said, you have two of these, two hyacinth bulbs. And this is a spring perennial bulb, and like I said earlier, you can enjoy this arrangement for years to come, because once they've bloomed out and this arrangement's finished, you can take the this hyacinth bulb and you can plant it in the ground, and it'll come up year after year after year. Okay, you can do that to both of them, which is really great, because that's another activity you can do with your kids. You know, the flower will be spent, and so you can cut the stem off of the flower and leave the greenery and plant it in the garden. You guys can do that together, and then what fun when it comes up next year and it blooms again. It's awesome. I love to do that with my kids. Okay, so we're gonna take these out of the grow pot. And this, you see, this is why I like to have the box. So you're gonna see that there's lots and lots of soil. You can remove a lot of the soil, okay? See, you see the bulb there? You can almost remove majority of it so that you just have roots and a bulb, okay? Now I'm building this to the camera to you, so you're gonna put these in the back. You can see how we're gonna have the hyacinth are in the back, and then it's gonna be daffodil, then it's gonna be the kalanchoe, and then the ivy in the front, okay? And we'll use the pussy willow to help with a little bit of structure, because these bulbs can get a little top heavy. Okay, so you just take your first one, and you're gonna smash it up against the back of this planter, very back. See that, how I have it? And do the same thing with this one. What's cool about this demo is that instead of it being a live feed, is that you can pause if I'm going too fast, and you can pause and plant your bulbs, and then you can catch up. So another cool thing about the hyacinth is that they're native to the Eastern Mediterranean, specifically to like northern Bulgaria and Palestine. So they're just so, I'm sure you're super familiar with them. They're everywhere in the spring here in the Chicagoland area, but they're so pretty. I can imagine like being out in the Mediterranean and seeing just like fields and fields and fields of this. So I'm just gonna put this one sort of right next to it. Okay, up against the back. Okay. And yours are probably these are the one in our sample. You know, they're bloomed out, so they've gotten taller. So if the height looks a little off to you right now, it's because we sent you in your kits. We included things that aren't bloomed out so that you can enjoy them for longer. So they're going to get taller. Okay. So if they seem like once you have everything planted, they're kind of hidden in the back, don't worry. They'll keep going. Bulbs are notorious for growing towards the light. Like tulips, as a matter of fact, they're called phototropic. It means that even once they're cut, they continue to grow. That's why they're always popping out of arrangements. Okay, so we have our two hyacinth in the back. Okay. And next, we're going to take the daffodils. These are mini daffodils. Sometimes they're called tête-à-tête. In French, that means head-to-head, because they're just prolific bloomers, and lots of them, they're all right next to each other, right? These, again, are a perennial spring bulb. So this you can also plant in the ground after they're done. The only problem I find with daffodils sometimes is that the squirrels and the deer like to nibble on the bulbs, but you know, not always. So these, they're going to be like 3 little bulbs in here, and you can break them apart a little. I'm going to try to create like a straight line with them. Because how we're planting this, it's really just rows of different plants. So you can kind of rip them apart. If you want to completely rip them apart, you can, but same thing. Let's get the soil off so that they kind of look like a straight line like this instead of in a clump. Okay. I'm going to place those right in front of the hyacinth. And At this point, if you need to add a little soil to keep them upright, you can do that. But you probably can tell that, we put that soil almost up, only an inch from the top, but it's compacting as we put these bulbs in. And so you have to add soil around it. Okay. And we can go at finishing touches in the very end and make sure that we have soil everywhere. However, as we're planting, you can put it up around on the sides to make sure that your plants. So you see what I'm talking about? It seems like, wow, these are really tall and these are not, but the hyacinth will get taller. So our mini daffodils are our tete-a-tetes. They are actually have been in literature and art since the ancient times. The ancient Greeks and Romans talked about them and used them. So they've been around for a really long time. And they naturalize wildly, which again, I'm sure you've noticed that you can drive anywhere in the spring, almost in any region in the United States, and see daffodils. They're native to the meadows and the woods of southern Europe and northern Africa, specifically the Iberian Peninsula. So again, can you imagine going down to southern France or southern Spain and northern Africa and seeing just like daffodils just everywhere? It must be absolutely gorgeous. Okay. And so these guys come in like the yellow, orange, and white varieties. They're like a little, sometimes people call them buttercups because it looks like a little saucer with a cup. The ones you received are probably just solid yellow. Okay, so there's that. We have those. All right, the next plant we have is our Kalanchoe. And this is a lovely, like I said, a double, or as my mom likes to call them, ruffled Kalanchoe, because they look like little mini roses. Okay, this is it's actually a flowering succulent, which is interesting because not many succulents flower this profusely. Sometimes they'll have, a little bloom here or there, but nothing like this. And what's super interesting is that this is one of the first plants to ever be sent to outer space. In 1971, the Soviets brought this to their space station. They brought a white Kalanchoe. Crazy, it's been to space. These are native to Madagascar and the tropical parts of Africa. Again, it's a succulent, so that sort of makes sense. Okay, so we took this guy out of soil, and I like to take it and just squish it flat, because we're gonna stick it in this pot. Okay, you got that? So we see how nice and flat I have it. And we're gonna place it kind of in front of the daffodils. And if you need to remove soil at this point, you can do that. If you need to remove some in the front so that you can get this plant in, go ahead. Okay. And you can even rip some off the bottom. Gives the roots, it allows them to sort of loosen up and grow a little bit more into their new home, their new soil. Okay, so we have that down in the front. So see, this is where we are so far. Okay. I hope that you and your kids are having fun doing this. I know. It's like finally the weather's nice and we can get outside and plant some things. Okay. All right. And so our last plant that we're going to include in this arrangement is a variegated English ivy. Okay. English ivy, it's invasive in many climates. It's actually illegal to sell in California, because the weather's so lovely there that it just takes over everything. It is an evergreen vining plant. It's been around forever. It's native to Europe. It actually has been used medicinally. They use it in cough medicines as an expectorant. And all plants do release oxygen into the air. But what's cool about ivy, and the English ivy, common ivy is also another name for it, is that it releases its oxygen throughout the day. A lot of plants have a cycle where they do it maybe in the mornings or in the evenings or after sunset, but ivy is a super good air purifier because it does release oxygen like consistently throughout the day. It goes through its cycle and its process. And another cool thing is that it specifically filters out fecal bacteria in the air. So, you know, it's a good plant to keep in like, you know, a bathroom or a baby's room, or if you have a pet or something. So if you want to extra clean your air. All right. So this is going to be just sort of to make it add a little bit of softness and flow. And it is, like I said, it's an evergreen, it's a perennial. You can, once your arrangement, if you're not happy with how, you know, if it's kind of bloomed out and you're going to put the bulbs out in the garden, you can also put this ivy out in your garden, whether it's in a pot outside or in the ground. Okay. So what we're going to do with it is kind of find a good spot that you like. And again, you can knock almost all the soil off of this, whatever you need. It's really a robust plant. It'll grow with just like a tiny little piece of root. And so we're gonna just tuck this right into the front. Okay. So I kind of put mine, there seemed like a little bit of a hole right here, so I stuck it there. All right. Okay. Now we kind of 3 more steps. First is that we're going to go around. Yeah, probably have a lot of extra soil, stuff you knocked off the plants, and then some from the bag, and just go through and let's add soil to any places that are missing any. Make sure the plants are really in there and nice and stiff, especially the bulbs. Okay. We're going to use some of the pussy willow branches to kind of stake up the bulbs so they don't get all floppy, but it helps them make sure that they're really securely planted. So let's go through now. Make sure that when you're adding soil, that your soil line isn't over the top, the lip of this container, okay? Because then when you go to water, it'll kind of make a mess. You'll get water everywhere. If you have any yucky leaves on the Kalanchoe or on the ivy or anything, go ahead, cut it off, rip it off. It's not going to hurt the plant. Okay, so we're just going to add a little extra soil in any places that you think need it. Okay. Excellent. Okay. So now our second to last step, it's going to be to add pussy willow. And again, this is a super popular blooming branch that's used in the spring a lot. You know, this one, it comes in these large kind of gray, and they have one that's maybe a little blonder, the stick, and smaller. But this is just your standard pussy willow. And what we're gonna do is we're basically gonna stick them in the back here to make sure your bulbs don't go all over the place. I'm gonna do it artfully. I did not cut these down for you, so this is too tall. You can't just stick it in there like that. So I would say it's always better to start by cutting a little bit off and sticking it in there. And if you need to cut more, better. But if you cut too much, then you can't add it back, right? So I'm gonna start with cutting about like that much off. And at first, I'm just gonna make sure that I give each one of the bulbs a little support. It's sort of like I said, it's decorative staking. Okay. So again, and it's a matter of taste as well. If you like the way it looks to have really, really tall sticks, then you could do that. All right. And these can be reused, especially if you have them indoors. You might be able to get another year out of them if you decided to save them, or just stick them in a vase and they dry up and preserve. The little gray stuff, fuzzies might fall off, but the sticks are a nice color. Okay. Okay. Yeah. One more. you should have something that looks like this. You see how it's kind of holding up the bulbs, and you can, once they start to grow, or if you have one that's kind of a little floppy, you can kind of weave it around the sticks so that it's got a little structure. All right. Okay. All right. Now our last step is that we're going to moss this. So I sent you all a little baggie with a little bit of, this is green forest moss. Get it open. And this is just sort of a little bit of a finishing touch that, you know, it makes it look professional. Since it's indoors, we want to cover up the soil. You know, we want it to, it doesn't look finished to me if an indoor plant, if you can see all the soil. So you can take out your moss and you can kind of tear it into pieces. I like to start with sort of like a long piece. And we're gonna start in the back because I think it's easier. And basically you can just tuck it sort of like a little collar around the whole plant, right? We're gonna tuck it around. Make sure you get it to where it's not sticking up too much above the container. There's a little bit of a lip on this container and you can almost tuck it in there. Same thing, we don't want to get water everywhere. Now you can water straight through this moss. Okay, and so you just keep turning, tear off small pieces, tuck it in. You'll probably have some leftover, but what you can do is that if your bulbs, your Kalanchoe and your ivy are going to last longer than your bulbs, and so if you decided to take those out, then you can just use your leftover extra moss to kind of fill in above them so you don't have an empty spot. Okay, so you're just going to keep turning it and adding the moss, and I think it looks really springy, pretty. I like to use the green moss this time of year. And it looks kind of nice sometimes if you have a little tendril sort of kind of hanging off the container. But again, that's your personal preference. Okay. All right. Okay. So there we have it. Okay. Now you want to give this guy some water. Like I mentioned before, this is a succulent, and these bulbs, they store all their energy in their bulbs, so we don't need a ton of water. I would say, you know, treat this like a cut flower arrangement. Check the water once a week. Get your finger kind of below your decorative moss, and if it feels damp, don't water it. If it's dry, then let's give it a little bit of water. But remember, there's no drainage hole, so you don't want to overwater. Okay, let it dry out, and if the leaves start turning really yellow, you're giving it too much water. Okay, so there we go. Again, if you have any questions about putting this together, please email us at hello@chaletnursery.com. And I hope you had fun, and have a happy Mother's Day to all of you. Thank you.